The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, and I'm very pleased to be joined this evening by three folks from GO-EDC, which stands for the Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation. We have to my left Bill Wyman. He's the interim CEO and president of the board. To his left is Jason White. He's the new CEO, effective the 6th of April, and we're taping this on the 16th of April, so a whole 10 days on the job you've got. And to my right, Erin Sutton. She's the communications manager. So thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it very much.
Cheryl.
And I will just say right up front, the website for GO-EDC is greateroshkosh.com, and we'll be putting that up throughout the show. So first of all, let's start with the very basics. What is GO-EDC?
You want to take that one?
Well, GO-EDC stands for Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation, so even though I've been here 9 days, I know that. So, but no, in all seriousness, it is the organization that is charged for what I like to say, eating, breathing, and sleeping economic development 24/7. And that is our charge, and our only charge, is to build the economy and expand the economy of the Greater Oshkosh area. So, so I came on board a week ago Monday. And it's my job to implement a plan of work that the board and other stakeholders in the community have created. And we want to create jobs, capital investment, help businesses grow, and help entrepreneurs start and expand their businesses in the Greater Oshkosh area. So from a staffing perspective, that's my charge, to kind of get a team rolling and get a plan rolling that we can achieve, in the Greater Oshkosh area. And certainly the board for the last year has had a lot to do with getting the organization to this point, led by Bill and his group.
Mm-hmm. Now, and I suspect we'll get into this a little bit more in depth shortly, but when you talk about helping businesses grow or get started, are you also talking about very small businesses, like 1 or 2 person businesses, helping to provide seed money to get them started, or?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, in my career in economic development, certainly we count employees and we count jobs. That's very important. There's nothing more important to a person than a job. Being able to feed their family and contribute locally and so on and so forth. But when it comes to assisting businesses, we don't necessarily measure the number of jobs. Really, we look at value to the community. So, an entrepreneur that's starting out with a new product. There's a certain level of innovation, there's a certain level of technical assistance in creating a business plan. There's a lot of different resources that need to be brought to the table, versus somebody that's an established company, a couple hundred employees, a couple thousand employees or whatnot. They have a different degree of assistance. So an economic development organization has to be ready to respond to any kind of business, especially in understanding the value that the business creates for the local economy. But furthermore, understand the entire economic climate and the resources that can come to the table for each particular type of company. So that's what we do as economic development professionals, is to figure out what are the right resources for the right businesses at the right time, so that business, regardless of size and scope and focus, that they have those at the right times and that they can grow locally.
And one of the businesses that I read, I can't remember if this was in the Northwestern or on your website, but it was Offbeat Press, which is a smaller business. Bill, can you maybe talk a little bit about how GO-EDC has helped them?
Sure. One of the tools that GO-EDC has is what's called a revolving loan fund, and the city has taken some of the TIF money that they've gotten over the years from the TIF districts and set aside $2.4 million that can be used for revolving loan fund. So if a small business or a large business is planning on expanding, they can come to GO-EDC and they can get some money from us.
Okay.
The whole thing is tied around more jobs. So I think it's every $25,000 or
every $12,000.
every $12,000 that we loan this small business, they have to hire someone. So it's all tied around creating jobs.
Okay. Now, when you say it comes from TIF money, is that TIFs that have been retired or any TIF?
The last year of a TIF
Okay.
can get extended one more year,
Okay.
and then that money can be used by the city for different purposes.
So it's as they're about to retire?
It's the last year of the TIF money,
Okay.
yes.
All right, good. So for every $12,000 that you give them, and is it giving them or is it a loan?
No, it is a loan.
Okay.
There is very flexible terms and interest rates. Every loan is looked at specifically. We have a loan committee of 6 or 7 people that are all bankers or accountants or attorneys, and they look at the specific business. They get a lot of paperwork from that business and make sure that it's going to work, and then depending upon the plan, the terms and the interest rates and all the specifics are put together from that.
Okay. And is that the same with no matter what size business you're helping, that for every $12,000 that they're loaned, they have to hire one person?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing about it, if we lend, let's say, $50,000, they have to also put in $50,000. And now they can get a loan from a bank or they can invest themselves, but we're just in the other 50%.
Okay.
So they have to show them some interest themselves also.
So here's a question then, and I guess it's kind of a devil's advocate type question. If I'm getting 12 grand from you, for example, and then I'm going to my bank or a credit union for another 12 grand, would it not be simpler for me to just go to the bank or the credit union and get the full 24,000? What's the advantage to having it split up?
Well, in some cases, they might do that.
Okay.
In fact, if they can, that's great. In some cases, though, the lender will either want to reduce, they want to participate in the loan, but their loan criteria may be set to where, based on the type of business, they'll only loan to a certain level, or they would like to reduce their risk. They like to be in the deal, but still reduce their risk and have a partner in the deal. And in all cases, what this does is it enhances deal flow. It enhances deal flow for the business, obviously, so the business can grow. It enhances deal flow for the bank, so the bank can make the deal. And certainly, for us, it allows us to continue to invest in businesses and help them grow locally. So, so there's a lot of win-wins in this, but in a lot of cases they might go to the bank and get 100, not 100% because they got a stake in it themselves.
Sure.
But nonetheless, this is another tool in the toolbox that we can offer to the community and to lenders and to a business to help facilitate more economic growth in the community.
Okay, excellent. And I know you've only been on the job 10 days, but here's a question that you can answer.
Oh boy.
Because it's about you. Give us a little bit of a background about you.
Sure.
You look very young, but I'm not going to hold that against you because I don't look my age either. But to me, you look very young, and not that young people can't do things, but tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to Oshkosh and GO-EDC. Because I'm assuming you're not from here.
I was born and raised in Iowa.
Okay.
And I've spent, in fact, my entire life in Iowa. I grew up in Dubuque County. I grew up near Dyersville, which is the home of Field of Dreams.
He has Hawkeye license plates.
They're
But
pretty
I'm
cool.
a Big Ten fan through and through, so I cheer for the Badgers in the NCAA tournament when my Hawkeyes are up. But nonetheless, so I grew up in the Dubuque area, went to
Okay.
Loras College in Dubuque. My wife and I, she sat behind me in high school. We've known each other for 30 years, and she asked me in homecoming, I did a little bit of a diversion, but if we have a little time, interesting story. She asked me in homecoming, and I turned her down in high school. We went off our diversion paths, and a number of years later, actually 2.5 years ago, we got together and we got married. She had 3 kids. We're a blended family. So we have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. But nonetheless, so we grew up I went to Loras College in Dubuque, worked in political campaigns in the late 1990s, worked in the Iowa legislature in the early part of the last decade. So I'm glad you said I look young, because I'm starting to feel old for a number of things that I've done in the last 20 years or so. But nonetheless, I've been doing economic development, managing public-private partnership type organizations like GO-EDC is, where we have local governments and we have businesses both joining together to invest in us to support our plan of work. And so I've been doing that for the last dozen years or so, 3 organizations in Iowa, all of them successful, all of them more successful than when I started, thankfully, so I'm very proud of that.
Bragging rights.
Right, little bragging rights. And so, my wife and I met GO-EDC's consultant back in December, actually, at a conference. And they started talking about this GO-EDC thing. And Brenda was her name at the time, when she was with the organization. And I said, okay, go on, tell me a little bit more about it. It really got me excited. And I went home and told my wife. And then the next month, I visited Oshkosh and was blown away. Never been to Oshkosh, heard about Oshkosh because of the great businesses that Oshkosh has had over time.
And this was like in December, January
December,
that you visited?
January, yep.
And our weather didn't scare the pants off you?
It didn't, no. Remember, I'm from Iowa, so it's not that much warmer where I come from.
I suppose,
but,
yeah.
But nonetheless, was completely blown away what I experienced here. And then a couple of weeks later, my wife came up and she said, we got to raise our kids here. This is a great area for us to live. So they're still back in Iowa, but there was a lot of things in this community, both from a quality of life perspective for raising our family, but also really didn't feel like there was a lot holding this community back in terms of being able to grow. But the thing that really struck me was this is a community that has a history of valuing its companies. And I wanted to be in a community that realized how important its companies are to the fabric and just the overall economic base of this community. And because you talked about the previous organizations, I'm very proud of the fact that I've been a really strong advocate for businesses where I've been, and I was just in love with the businesses in this community, so I wanted to be a part of that.
Sure, excellent. What do you mean when you say the city has and the community have a way of valuing their businesses? What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the things that was identified in the strategic plan, and I've repeated this over and over the last 2 weeks, is getting out and building a relationship with your leading employers, being in their corner, understanding what their growth challenges are, but also what the opportunities are. And there's a lot of things with respect to a public-private partnership. When we meet, like yesterday when our board met, we got leading employers in the community from Oshkosh Corporation, J Manufacturing, Bemis Company, and then the hospitals, the community college, UWO, and so on and so forth. The value that we bring to this is we have a set of partners that we can call on. So when a business has a need, the city and whatnot, the chamber, that when a business has a specific need, we can go to them and they will recognize right away what they need to do to help that company. Whether it's a regulatory issue, a workforce issue, a financial issue, we get people around the table that can help them. And there are, where I come from, we have a county of 50,000 people, 10,000 people working. In this MSA, Oshkosh-Neenah, There's 90,000 people that work here. Oshkosh is 70,000 people. So there's a lot at stake in this community for taking care of the employers here. And that is where economic development begins and ends, by taking care of the companies that are here, because most new jobs in this community, past, present, and future, will be by the employers that are already here in the community.
Sure. You mentioned Neenah. Is that sort of the geographic area then that GO-EDC serves? Or, you know, give me the parameters.
Right now, GO-EDC would be basically the Oshkosh School District.
Okay.
It's the city of Oshkosh, the town of Inland, Black Wolf, town of Oshkosh, Algoma, Nakaimai. Did I miss one? I think that's it. But we had to start somewhere. We could expand. If we're successful, we'll expand into probably to the west, to the north, and to the south. Going into Neenah, going north will be a little more difficult because we also have the pressure of the communities to the south coming down. So,
Sure,
but
yeah.
where there's a need, we'll help out.
Yeah, well, we're kind of unique in this area, I think, because we are somewhat landlocked, you know, but good. So when you mentioned Neenah, how does that kind of factor in?
Well, I was describing the MSA, and you know,
MSA is what?
Metropolitan Statistical Area.
Okay, thank you.
So when you see labor force stats, population statistics, economic indicators, a lot of times they're reported at an MSA level.
Okay.
So Neenah and Oshkosh, well, they are different in a lot of ways. They're part of the same metropolitan statistical area, easy for me to say, which means that they attract a lot of workers. They are employment hubs. So they don't have a lot of people. They have people leaving the community for work, but they have more people coming into work than they have leaving. So that makes up, just from, you know, simplifying the explanation, it means you have a lot of labor force that comes here to work. So Neenah and Oshkosh have that as kind of a metropolitan statistical area.
Okay. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a rest. And we're going to switch gears and talk to you, Erin, because this is a relatively new position for you, too, right?
Yes.
Okay. So before we get into some more specifics about GO-EDC, why don't you tell us, you know, a little bit about your background and what brought you to GO-EDC?
Sure. Well, I'm actually from the area originally. I grew up in Omro and spent a lot of time in Oshkosh growing up. Played with Oshkosh Youth Soccer Club.
If you can just speak up a little
Sure.
bit.
So I have family in the area, and you know, I went to college in La Crosse, and after college was working for the Kohler Company. I was there for about 7.5, 8 years in their marketing advertising departments, and that's my background. So a good fit for GO-EDC,
Sure.
And my position. And after I left Kohler, I was up in Door County, and I was working for the Fish Creek Civic Association. So kind of my first, still marketing role with them, but my first kind of dabble into more economic development roles. I had a business association that I worked for, and a volunteer board as well, very much as I do now. But I had 141 business members that I kind of was responsible for promoting Fish Creek in tourism, which in turn also promoted them, but I also was a service, you know, worked directly for them in helping their businesses succeed, helping them find the right tools, those sorts of things. So a good, you know, transition into this. I'm definitely learning a lot more about economic development, but it's great, it's fun. You know, Bill and the board have done a great job with setting everything up for us, and I'm extremely happy to have Jason on board as well,
Sure.
too.
Now, when did you actually start?
I actually started February 16th.
Okay.
We kind of joke that, or at least Bill did at our lunch, that I started actually on a national holiday. So that was my first day of work.
Okay.
But I actually was in the office. We worked that day. So
Excellent.
we were getting things done.
All
so
right,
I've
very
been
good.
there just probably a month longer than just
Yeah.
a little less than a month over Jason. So
Excellent.
Erin took a risk by taking a job without having a boss. She didn't know who her boss was going to be. So that was
That could be a good thing.
I had a lot of faith and trust in the committee and the board. So
Well,
and
sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. You know, if something just feels right, then it feels right, and you just have to trust your gut.
it did, and I was really excited about the opportunity that lied ahead with GO-EDC, and being able to be in at ground level with GO-EDC. One of the questions they had asked me in my interview, my last interview, was, when if you take this position, if you get it, what will you be most proud of in a year? Or what will you look back and will you see, and just everything that we've been able to accomplish. It's very exciting. Even within the last 2 weeks that Jason's been on, we've accomplished a lot. And even since I came on right away in February, we've accomplished a lot, and we're continuing, and we're excited about what we're doing and moving forward, and kind of letting the community know we're here and what we're doing. So we appreciate you having us on.
Oh, sure.
tonight,
Well,
too.
I'm happy to do it. And so let's talk about, and I guess, Bill, this would be a question for you. Why GO-EDC? We've got things like the Chamber, we've got the Downtown BID, Business Improvement District, for viewers who don't know. We've got CHAMCO, which I think is different from you guys because it deals more with industrial park stuff and industry. But why GO-EDC when we have these other development arms, if you will?
Well, we have the Chamber, we have CHAMCO, we've got the BID, we've got the university, we've got the tech schools, we've got the Visitors Bureau. We've got many organizations in this community that are involved in economic development one way or another. You could even say the K through 12 school district is tied in with economic development. Everything's in. Well, what GO-EDC can do is bring all those organizations together and lead them forward in the same direction. So it's coordinating the effort of economic development, and it's collaborating with all those organizations, so the right hand knows what the left hand's doing, and we can all group around a strategic plan that the community has to make the community grow.
Okay. And this was launched in last August? I mean, you officially launched. You kind of started earlier in the year doing some things, but I believe I saw a press release from August.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We started to put the board together and created bylaws throughout last fall.
Okay.
And then the goal was on January 1st was to hire a CEO.
Okay.
We continued on that same path. However, we didn't find the quality of Jason at that point, so that's why I became the interim CEO, because we wanted to stay on that same timeline.
Sure. Okay. All right. So how do you differ from things like the Chamber in their development arm, or the BID? I mean, there's something different that you must be offering, I would assume.
Well, we're more of a broad, all economic development.
Okay.
For instance, in the past, the Chamber was handling commercial and retail economic development, and CHAMCO was handling the industrial side. The BID is just downtown. So it's segmented.
Okay.
What we're kind of an overall all economic development, and all those organizations, except for CHAMCO, but all those other organizations are working with us, so we all go forward together. CHAMCO has basically closed their doors. So there is no more CHAMCO in Oshkosh anymore. They've done a terrific job. What they've done for this community is amazing over the last 30, 40 years. But they have basically closed their doors, and that responsibility of industrial economic development will now fall under GO-EDC.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to throw a quote out here. And I just...
What did I say?
I just want your response to this. So when GO-EDC was launched, it was said in a press release that the goal was to, quote, bring more accountability, investment, and coordination to Oshkosh's economic development effort, unquote. Do you, Bill, or someone on the board think that there was a lack of accountability, investment, or any of those other things that you all can do better?
Again, I'll go back to say it's the coordination.
Okay.
There were a lot of organizations doing a lot of different things, all very successful, but there was the coordination wasn't there.
Okay.
And the university has some small business development areas, and they have a family business succession plan, and then Colleen Merrill has a really cool entrepreneurial thing, and then the chamber is doing their thing with commercial and retail. So there was no one coordinating and putting it all together, so there was a lack of what's the word I used in the goal?
Well, let's see, there was accountability,
Accountability. There was
investment, and coordination.
Yeah, all
So-
of that. Now, the
Okay.
investment side, I'd like to take even further, because the amount of investment since GO-EDC has started is amazing. We've raised over $850,000 of private money, and we have how much public money? I don't even remember the number, but
Probably another 600.
so we're over 1.2 million or 1.3 million of dollars that we've raised for economic development.
Okay.
And that is something that hasn't ever been done in this community.
Okay.
There hasn't been the influx of wanting to do that. The organizations that are doing economic development didn't spend as much time on that as we have done. And what it shows is the people are looking for that coordination, and there is a need for it because private organizations are supporting us.
Sure. When I read the word accountability, the first thing that came to my mind was, and we don't need to slam the chamber, but I am bringing them up because, you know, the city council and the city always had a problem with the chamber, and their lack of accountability, their lack of openness with regard to a lot of the ways that they were doing business and that kind of thing. And you've been around for a while, so you probably know what I'm referring to here. You know, you're laughing. Now, why are you laughing at me? This is a fact.
At you.
You're laughing about me?
No, laughing with you.
Okay. All right. So, you know, how open will you all be with the city or the city council, which could be one and the same?
First of all, the chamber is a member organization, and it's private businesses that are chamber members.
Right.
The chamber's responsibility is to do the right thing for their members. There are things that the city has responsible for that may not go in the same line as the private business. So the differences of opinion or the different direction that the city has versus the chamber has, there's always going to be that, well, the city should do it this way, or public dollars should be spent this way, and private doesn't necessarily agree with that, or there's reasons that the public can't do what the private wants to do.
And never the twain shall meet.
Right.
Okay.
And that's okay, because that happens everywhere. So to say that the city never got along with the chamber, or that the...
Well, I didn't say they didn't get along. I said they weren't getting, there was not an openness in accountability. And I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to go into specific details because, frankly, I don't remember some of them.
Well,
but I just remember there was this problem. And, you know, and maybe since the chamber is a member-only organization, maybe they should not have been trying to develop business for the city. You know, that's just a question that I'm sort of asking.
Let me
you know.
take a step where we are now. And Jason touched on this a little bit. We have 22 board members on
Okay.
our board. 9 of them are associated directly with a organization. So we have the university Tom Sunleitner's on the board. We have the tech school, and we have the city, the K through 12 schools, Stan Max on our board. So we have education on our board. Then we have the city. We have the county. We have the townships represented on our board. Then we have the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation and the Convention Visitors Bureau and the Chamber on our board.
And I think that makes perfect sense.
So having all that on the board, all of those have all their individual membership or direction, and all of them are going to, the city's going to want to do this, and the tech school's going to want to do that, but we're here to keep it all together.
Sure.
Well,
Okay.
if you don't mind, I want
No,
to just
go
give an
ahead.
example. This project actually started before I got here, but so I'll give Erin a lot of credit. And Erin said she enjoyed. She's really happy to be able to work with me, and let me tell you, I'm a lot even more happier than she is that we have the best communication manager in the state of Iowa or Wisconsin.
You're not in Iowa anymore. Kansas. You're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah. So
Was that
best
a Freudian
communication
slip?
manager
You're
in
absolutely that
Wisconsin.
high.
That'll be edited. That'll be edited when it goes on TV, I'm sure.
We don't edit. But that's all right.
So hello, Oshkosh.
We understand.
Wisconsin.
You haven't been here that long. We understand.
So, but
You're
nonetheless,
forgiven.
perfect example. We met this morning on a project that had needed some coordination, and Erin and Bill had connected with that business, and Erin called a meeting, and we were there, obviously, in our office. The chamber was present, the state was present, the city was present. So I think that's a perfect example where if there's some coordination or some leadership needed, we're not going to be shy about bringing the right people to the table to address the issues so that the business can gain clarity about what their next step is.
Okay.
So that's a perfect example.
Did you say the state was present?
Correct.
Who was present from the state?
Wisconsin Economic Development.
Okay. All right.
Is there,
Excellent.
WEDC.
Okay.
Bill has said it, in our launch, that sort of thing, and he's touched on it a little bit, that we are kind of serving as the concierge of economic development for the county, and so we may not have the right answer and we may not have the right program, but our job is to find out who has the right program and connect the person with the right, the business with the right person to meet their needs.
Sure.
And that's, what we were doing this morning, definitely wanting to find the best solution possible for this particular project.
Excellent.
We've been out visiting companies, mostly to this point is for fundraising.
Okay.
We'll continue to do a BRE, that's another term that I've learned, like MSA, I didn't know what BRE, Business Retention and Expansion, that's what that stands for. So there's a lot of terms I've learned.
Yeah.
But anyway, we went to a business, a large business in town that is expanding, and they are building an addition on their existing building. And when we went and talked to the head of that division of the business, he said that when they started the building process, he spent more time not knowing who to call, or you call this person and you got to talk to them, and then you call another person, you have to call them, and it was very cumbersome and problematic for him, because he's trying to run his business just to try to get the right people in together to build this new addition. Well, now with us, that gentleman can call GO-EDC, and we'll bring his example, the chamber, the state, the city, and GO-EDC all in a room together, and we'll discuss it and help this gentleman so he doesn't have to do all the running around himself.
So you're a one-stop shop, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, so pretend I'm that big business, okay? And I want to expand.
We're trying to raise some money. Can we? We're a big business. We're going to ask him for money.
No, I left my checkbook at home. I'm so sorry. So I want to expand my business, but I don't necessarily want to borrow any money from you guys. I've got lending all squared away, all set up. But I just need to know what to do, where to go. Can you guys still help me with that? And is there a fee associated with it? Or is one of the caveats, if you will, of working with GO-EDC that you have to borrow some money from you?
No.
Okay.
As Jason said earlier, why don't you take this? I've talked enough. You go ahead. You answer this.
I know you said earlier that they can get all their funding somewhere else. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a fee, I guess, associated with your helping
No.
someone.
any business can contact us for
Okay.
assistance, and we will not charge them a dime for that assistance. That's why, one of the reasons why we have been securing investors from the public and private sector, so that we don't charge fees for consultations and so on and so forth. So when somebody comes to us, they might have a gambit of needs, and every case is different. A lot of times it will be financing. Sometimes our revolving loan fund will be a good fit. Sometimes it won't. I'm meeting with the Wisconsin Business Development Corporation next week. They do 504 loans with the SBA and local banks. Sometimes they're a better option. So I think you have to know. So yeah, two things. One, businesses in Greater Oshkosh, if you have growth needs, if you have growth challenges, come see us. That's number one. Number two is, no, we will not charge you a fee. And three, we will be as resourceful as we possibly can to bring the right people to the table to assist you. So I think those are the points I think are probably the most important.
Okay, all right. So what kinds of projects are you working on right now, besides trying to raise money? Are you guys going to do a capital campaign for that, or are you just looking for partners out there, and that's why you're visiting businesses?
We haven't really called it a capital campaign,
Okay.
but we're out there raising money. We're looking for 3-year pledges,
Okay.
and we're trying to raise, $2.1 million, and we've raised 1.4.
Wait, you're trying to raise how much?
2.1.
2.1, and you've raised 1.4.
Yep, approximate. Those aren't exact numbers.
All right. And how long have you been at raising the funds?
but about 4 months.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Well, that's because we're needed out here.
All right. Well, I can see that, and especially if Champco is finishing now. Are they completely finished? Why have they gotten out of this? And why is the industrial part of this being turned over to GO-EDC?
I don't want to speak for Champco because I was not involved with
Okay.
Champco. Champco's past was to help finance new buildings and on industrial park land.
Right.
With what's happening in the banking industry, their way of doing it has changed. It's not as successful. It's not working as well. So their mode of the reason for their being isn't as strong as what it was. Champco will continue as a shell operation because there are still leases and money going back and forth with specific industries and businesses, but they're not going to have a board and they're not going to be making any future advancements.
Okay. So, well, are the industrial parks full right now? Where do we stand on that?
Well, I'm still learning that part.
Okay.
But from what I understand, there's at least a couple of industrial parks, at least that I saw on my tour through the greater Oshkosh area. And there's also an aviation park, and I'm going to probably ask Bill to help me a little bit on this, but I believe what happens, the city and the county both acquired some land for around the airport, or near the airport, right?
The specific aviation park, yes.
The aviation
county owns the airport.
Okay.
And then the city bought land next to the county.
Okay. So when you look at, so there's land. We do have businesses that are landlocked, and we've had to work with the city over the last couple of weeks on a couple of those to see how far they can expand on their current footprint. So that is an issue. We have growing, I think every business we've encountered over the past couple of weeks is growing in greater Oshkosh. And so we do have targeted cluster areas that we're focusing on that are strengths in the greater Oshkosh area. You know, we have advanced manufacturing, we have aerospace aviation, we have technology, we have entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. So those are key areas where we believe that we can even assume ourselves even more in the future.
You asked about industrial parks. North Main Street, up by UPS, up where it crosses Snell, that's an industrial park. That industrial park is almost full.
Okay.
There's a couple vacant lots there. Some of those lots have to be available for water, what's it called?
A retention pond?
Almost retention ponds,
Yes.
but yes, there has to be some green space within those.
So that's been a very successful industrial park that started, it's probably one of the older ones in town.
Okay.
Another industrial park would be, I don't remember what it's called, it's south of town off Waukau, where Oshkosh Corp is, OEC,
Bemis is out there, I think.
Kingsbury. No, this would be east of the airport.
East of the airport. Okay, all right.
Then that goes north all the way to Ripple, and then just on the south to Ripple, and then just south of Ripple and west of Oregon Street, that's where the aviation park is, and that's 80 acres.
80 acres.
But the largest industrial park of all is southwest of town, off Highway 91.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
That's where Bemis is.
Yeah, that's the one I'm
back
thinking
behind there. There are, I don't remember how many acres, but 90 to 100 acres that the city has options to buy, and that's the growth, industrial growth future of Oshkosh is out now.
And there is some space there.
Oh,
for
there
sure.
is space.
For sure.
Silver Star Brands has a big facility there. That's where 4Imprint has a big facility there. Disher Millworks out there. There's a lot of organizations already out there. Bemis.
Sure. And Silver Star Brands, for people who don't know, is formerly Miles Kimball.
Correct.
Okay, so let's get back to you, Jason. As far as your perspective, I know how you feel about how the community here sort of takes care of its businesses and appreciates and respects its businesses. We're all having trouble talking tonight. Every one of us has screwed up somewhere. What is your perspective overall on the businesses that we have in this community?
Yeah. Well, I've worked in several different places, back in my home state. The place where I came from was largely a bedroom county in the Des Moines metropolitan area, meaning, as I said before, a lot of people leave every day for work. And so, great quality of life, but a lot of people leave every day for work. Here in Oshkosh, people work here, and more and more they're shopping here. They're sending their kids to school here. So it's more of an interconnected economy here, where you're able to do all those things. And I think a large part of it is, and going back to the earlier point, is I've met with a couple of developers over the last couple of weeks, and they've given me some history. It's in the last 5 years, and our friends over at the Chamber have a lot to do with this too. The retail base of this community has grown by leaps and bounds. And now, why would that happen? Well, a couple of reasons. One, we're Event City, and we attract hundreds of thousands of people to the Greater Oshkosh area every year.
Retail and food service industry.
And food service. But also, and this is another point why what we do is so important. We have businesses here. And what I always say is, why you need to take care of your manufacturers is, Oshkosh Corp has several thousand people, or whatever, that work there at any given point in time. That is how you attract service and retail industry, in large part. I mean, you need a strong transportation network. You need people coming into town for events and conventions. But people who work in your community will also shop in your community. And so, from that perspective, that is so impressive to me about Oshkosh. In addition to, as I said before, Oshkosh now has an interstate running through it. You have a rail network for shipping goods and finished goods. And, there's also great recreation. I mean, as Bill knows very well. So I think there's a lot of, as I said before, I don't want to repeat what I said before, but I think it bears repeating, which is everything that a community needs to grow, to be successful, to achieve economic growth, Oshkosh has. In addition to being part of a very strong region within the Fox cities. So as I said before, I don't really see a lot holding it back as long as we can continue to move, all of us as partners can continue to coordinate, collaborate, and head in the same direction.
I'm going to take issue with one thing. I know that we're event city. I get that, and I know that we have to have retail, but there is so much retail here. And that, as we all know at this table, does not support a living wage. And that's true anywhere in the country. I don't care where you go. So if we have a bunch of people working within retail and the fast food industry, or any food and beverage establishment as far as that goes, where they're not being even paid minimum wage in some cases, they're being expected to have their tips make up the difference to meet minimum wage. You have to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to have a living wage. So what are you guys looking at doing to bring in living wage dollars,
Sure.
corporations that will bring in a higher wage?
Well, and just to clarify, retail is a outcome of an economic development program. And, as I said before, our focus areas are primarily, when you look at the organization's strategic plan, the target areas are information technology, manufacturing, aviation, aerospace, and what's kind of termed as second stage growth companies. So, so that is the target just based on the cluster of businesses that we have in the community, deploy the bulk of the people in this town. So, so I think that those are our target areas, and then in addition to that, the goals that we have are to meet within companies within those cluster areas, eventually get to a point, and we will be there soon, where we can visit 150 of those folks every year, talk about their growth needs and challenges and opportunities and so on and so forth, and creating a plan for each of them on a customized basis. And also to create capital investment of $75 million from those leading companies that we support and connect with, and 1,000 new jobs. Now, 1,000 new jobs is interesting because, as you said before, and as I said yesterday at our board meeting, it sometimes is perceived that anybody who wants a job is currently working, if you look at the unemployment rate. The challenge is to either A, retrain folks for positions in need in the workforce, or bring in more people to address shortages in our workforce. Now, a lot of those folks, a lot of the shortages are within the cluster areas that I just identified. So if we can fill those, we can get people to a higher standard of living that you referred to earlier.
Sure. And give those to me again, if you would, please, Jason. We've
The
got
cluster areas?
aviation, aviation technology,
Aviation slash aerospace, manufacturing, information technology, and second stage growth companies. So entrepreneurs that are beyond the startup stage, that are accelerating, I guess, if you will, to the next stage of their lifespan.
Okay,
So,
all right. So that's obviously, I'm assuming, part of your strategic plan.
correct.
Are there other things within your strategic plan that viewers should know?
Well, as I said before, I think more and more this workforce component is going to be so key. And training and retraining and identifying the skills gap with existing employers. Some employers within these cluster areas have actually described it as a crisis situation, depending on what position they're trying to recruit for. Whether it's engineering, whether it's welding, whether it's entry-level manufacturing work, whatever the case may be. So I think the key is we'll continue to have a solid plan. We had one last week. We had a meeting with aviation folks to identify a strategy, a workable strategy for helping these employees fill their positions, because we really can't create jobs unless we have people that have the skills to fill those jobs.
Okay.
Workforce is a huge issue in Oshkosh and around the whole area. That's why our revolving loan fund is wrapped around workforce. That's why some of the tax credits that you can get from the state and the Fed are related to workforce. When we go into companies and we talk to them, it's a twofold issue. First of all, some of the lower level positions, the people don't want to show up for work, or they don't understand what a work ethic is. So
Sure.
to get them to show up and be on time and meet all the expectations on the lower level jobs, they can't do that. But the middle and upper level jobs, a lot of people from maybe not Iowa, but other areas don't want to come to Wisconsin. They think they don't understand how nice it is here and what the quality of life we have here. So that's another whole aspect of economic development that we haven't even talked about is increasing the quality of life here so that people are looking to move here. It has to do with housing, it has to do with neighborhoods, it has to do with the schools. I mean,
Has to do with arts.
Yeah, arts. It has to. The economic development is all, it includes everything. But if you have strong industry with good paying jobs, it'll all muster up and be better.
Well, and I think that's the key to the whole thing, and that's a tough nut to crack. So I applaud you guys for taking it on, because we see the school district's budget shrinking, the city's budget shrinking, the county's budget is dwindling away, and we don't see the state giving us any more money. They're just taking. So, if you can create jobs, then that's going to help ease everybody's pocketbooks. So again, I applaud you guys for doing that. Now, I realize you guys are relatively new, but have you heard from any taxpayers or residents in the community saying, hey, we think you need a grocery store downtown? That's one of the things that we hear, who have been around for a long time, have heard for a long time. Ever since we lost the Walgreens downtown, people have been clamoring for, the ones who live downtown anyway especially, have been clamoring for a grocery store downtown. Do you get any of those kinds of calls, or do people not know yet that you're there, which is why you're doing this?
Have we gotten those calls? Not specifically, but what we have seen and what we have heard and what the direction of the country is, people are wanting to live downtown and move downtown. So if there's more people with good jobs downtown, there'll be a grocery store. You got to have the people there before the grocery store is going to move there. It's like anything else. It's like we're finally getting a noodles company because there's enough people around that want to go there.
Yeah. So you don't think that we have enough people living downtown yet?
I think it's getting there, but it's also the wage that the people get that live downtown.
Okay.
And it's growing. We're getting there. We'll have a grocery store downtown someday.
I hope so. Not that I live downtown or even on this side of town anymore, but for the people who do, I truly hope so. What about Keeney Island, where the old Pioneer Inn Resort used to sit? Has anybody called you and talked to you about trying to find a developer to put something there? It's not in these target industries, of course, but it would still bring in jobs, and it would still add to the tax base.
I have gotten a number of calls about the Pioneer. Most recently, actually, I was not, the GO-EDC wasn't involved in it, but there has been a local developer that has interest in purchasing the Pioneer, and that's been in the newspaper and everything else. So hopefully something's finally happened. But it was just at a roadblock because the seller was very far away from the buyer.
Yeah.
And over time, they've gotten closer together. So hopefully something can happen.
Okay, good. Excellent. Let's see, what else do I have on my list here in the short period of time?
You got to page 2?
I haven't gotten to page 2. Well, actually I did, because there was my one about the Pioneer Inn and a grocery store.
There you go.
One of the complaints that I hear a lot from people is that, and this is probably out of your purview a little bit here, but I hear from people, how much more stuff can they possibly cram in to that corridor in between, say, Walgreens on the frontage road at 9th, and maybe going down as far as, well, probably Applebee's, maybe a little bit north of there. There's so much stuff there, and the traffic is so congested. And I know you guys haven't had anything to do with that, but nor can someone say you can't put a business there if it's zoned for that. So that's kind of where it gets tricky. But has anyone complained to you about that or made any suggestions, or do you think they're just calling the city complaining?
I've not specifically fielded any calls regarding that.
Okay.
But again, if you go, CVS wants to be right across from Walgreens, and
Yeah.
Taco Bell wants to be right next to McDonald's. That's just what happens in all over the country. So
Yeah.
we're not much different.
It just seems like there's a lot going on there.
Wouldn't it be nice if they could spread it out?
Just spread it out a little bit. I mean, meanwhile, the Ponderosa place is sitting vacant, and the old Kmart store is
Yeah.
sitting vacant, and so, okay, here's one I want to touch on for sure. And this actually kind of came to me from someone. I can't say it exactly as she said it, so I'm just going to paraphrase it. You know, we're becoming a very diverse community here, and one of the ways to continue to attract people to your community is to be a little bit more racially diverse, minority diverse, that type of thing. And so when it comes to things like racial literacy and that type of thing, what is GO-EDC doing to become more racially literate, not only with the businesses that you're trying to attract, but just as a organization yourselves? There's one you hadn't planned.
Oh, that's true.
No. I think some of it goes a little into the whole workforce development. I think that's where we've kind of looked at it and working with our businesses.
The larger
that
corporations
aspect.
in this community are concerned about diversity. They want a more diverse workforce.
Okay.
So I don't think GO-EDC has done anything specifically about that at this point.
Okay.
But there is a need and a desire. There are a lot of federal, I don't want to say requirements, but expectations, and to be qualified at certain things to get federal funds or to get even federal contracts. Diversity is involved in that, and this community hasn't been as diverse as some.
Sure. Well, there's an organization that is starting to gain some steam in the community. It's called Fit Oshkosh, and they're all about, and I'm sure you'll hear of them eventually, but they're all about making corporations and governmental bodies and so forth more racially literate so that they can attract more minority people to their workforce. And, that too kind of goes with that whole quality of life thing. We have a community that for all intents and purposes is very white. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We are down to about a minute here. So is there anything that, the time goes fast, doesn't it? Is there anything that we haven't covered that any of you would like to just mention briefly, or maybe something we did cover that you want to reiterate?
I guess I'll just give my perspective of having, now this is the fourth public-private partnership I've had the opportunity to lead and be a part of, is that I've never been, while we're still at the startup stage and there's still work to be done, I've never entered an organization seeing the level of unity, energy, and I'll say inspiration that has been involved with creating this type of organization. And it's infectious. And so I hope that, and I believe that businesses in this community will feel that too and want to be a part of it, because I think Bill and his team, starting a network organization like this is not easy. And like you said, like Erin said, we're going to be the beneficiaries of the work that they put in. And I think now is a good time to get on the bus, because some special things are going to happen over the next several years.
All right, very good. Thanks to all three of you for being here, and to you especially, Bill, for taking on the challenge.
Thanks to you
like I
for
said,
doing this.
this is a
Thank
tough
you.
nut to crack. And I'd like to have you guys back, maybe not all three of you, but whoever wants to come back,
Erin can come back.
say maybe 6-8 months from now, and see where you're going with your non-capital campaign and so forth. So thanks again very much.
Great,
Thank you.
And of course, thanks to all of you and my crew. We will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.